How's it going, everyone? So in my latest video, I went over some of my favorite lightsaber designs in all of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and I got a lot of positive feedback. You guys seem to have really liked that previous video, so if you're new here and you want to see some really cool lightsaber designs, be sure to go back and check out my previous video. But for today's video, I'm actually going to be showing you guys how to recreate some of the most iconic lightsabers and blasters in all of Star Wars. Now, unfortunately, there aren't enough weapon parts in the game to make the weapons exactly as they appear in the movies, but I think I've managed to get pretty close. So the very first lightsaber that I want to cover in today's video is Darth Maul's lightsaber. Now, this is the closest I was able to get. Unfortunately, you can't put any more buttons on this thing. If we had the option to add 2 more buttons in the middle where the grips are, I feel like this would be as close as possible to Darth Maul's saber, but unfortunately, we can't do that, so this is the closest I was able to come up with. So for the components, I went with the temperance emitter. I think that looks pretty good. Then for the vents really don't matter too much, but I went with the hermit vents because the hermit vents go with the hermit emitter. And we have to go with the hermit switch because the hermit switch comes with this little red button. And these little red buttons are pretty essential when it comes to the look of the Darth Maul lightsaber. And then for the grips, I went with the Centauri Creed grips because I felt like this was the plainest looking grip that there was. There isn't too many bumps or grooves or anything in the Centauri Creed grips, so I felt like that looked the most like Darth Maul to me. And then for the pommel, I went with the Centauri Creed pommel as well because it has this little stripe in the middle where you can make it black, and that black part in the middle kind of makes it look a little bit more like Darth Maul's lightsaber. Then for the second grip, I went with Centauri Creed again. Then for the second switch, I went with the Hermit switch again. And then for the second emitter, it is also Temperance. And then for the final pommel, it doesn't really matter too much. I just picked whichever one looked kind of decent. I went with the Centauri Creed, but honestly, you can kind of mix and match with whatever. But the whole point of Darth Maul's lightsaber is the double-bladed saber, so the crossguard doesn't really matter too much. But do keep in mind when you use this lightsaber in the crossguard, it actually changes the color of the hermit switch for some reason. It just turns black. But if you use this lightsaber in any of the other forms, it turns it silver. I don't know why that is. But yeah, if you're going to use this lightsaber in crossguard, it is going to change that switch. That's just how it has to be. So for the materials, the primary color, I just went with Imperial Chrome because Darth Maul's lightsaber is a silver/chrome color. Then for the secondary color, I went with Imperial Chrome as well. For the accent, I went with the Imperial colors again, and I went with Plastoid Black. The polish doesn't really matter too much since this whole lightsaber is pretty shiny anyway. Now for the grip, I also went with Imperial Chrome because this whole lightsaber is supposed to be pretty shiny. Now you could go with Imperial Alloy to give it a little bit more texture, but honestly, it's kind of up to you guys. So I'll just leave it on Imperial Alloy because I kind of like the look of that. But either one of those two options kind of work with this lightsaber. Then for the conditioning, it doesn't really matter too much. Sometimes I like to give these lightsabers a little bit of wear and tear, but we'll just keep this one pristine. And yeah, that's the closest I was able to get to Darth Maul's lightsaber. I don't think it looks too bad. I mean, obviously it's not perfect, but you know, if you want to run around and pretend that you're Darth Maul, especially if you're playing on PC and you have like the Darth Maul mod, I think this is a pretty good lightsaber design. So next up on our list is one of the most famous lightsabers in all of Star Wars, and it's Darth Vader's lightsaber. Now, I couldn't go making this video without including Darth Vader. I had to include Darth Vader in this list. Now, luckily, Darth Vader's lightsaber is pretty easy to replicate. Now, obviously, it's not going to be 100% perfect, but you can get pretty close. So to make Darth Vader's lightsaber, I went with the Harmony emitter. I think this is the closest emitter out of all of them to Darth Vader's, so I went with that. And then I went with the Temperance vents because, you know, Darth Vader doesn't have a crossguard saber, but if he did, I feel like Darth Vader would have some like smaller looking vents. But if you want some bigger vents, I found that the Edgehawk vents actually look pretty good with this lightsaber too. Then for the switch, you just go with the Rebel Hero switch, which is Anakin Skywalker/Luke Skywalker's lightsaber that you get from the Deluxe Edition. Then you just go with the Rebel Hero grips. And then for the pommel, I actually went with the Indo Cordova pommel because I feel like that just fits the vibe a little bit better than the Rebel Hero. Then for the second grip, I went with Rebel Hero again, and then Rebel Hero again for the next switch. Then the second emitter is going to be Harmony again, and then the pommel doesn't really matter too much, so I just went with Rebel Hero. So the primary color we want to go with is going to be any type of silver or chrome, but I like to go with the metal alloy look. For the secondary color, you want to go with the darkest black you can find. For me, I went with the Imperial Black, and then I turned the polish down to 20, because if the polish is too high, then it just looks all shiny and it just doesn't look right. So I put the polish down on to 20. Then for the accent, I found that any type of chrome or silver works here. Then for the grip, Darth Vader has a rubber grip, so it makes sense to go with the textured black rubber. But if you want it to look a little bit darker, you can go with the Imperial colors, and then you can go with the Plastoid Black, and then just turn the polish back down to like 20. That's what I normally go with, and I feel like that looks pretty good. And I like how this lightsaber turned out as well. It obviously looks a little weird though when you're doing the double-bladed stance, or if you're going to be using the crossguard stance, but this is the closest that we can actually get to having Darth Vader's lightsaber, so I can't really complain because I think it turned out pretty well. So the next lightsaber on this list is Luke Skywalker's green lightsaber. Now this lightsaber was really hard to try to replicate because the switch to turn on Luke's lightsaber is actually on the bottom of his handle, and all of these lightsabers have them at the top middle, so obviously you can't get it in the right spot and it's going to look a little weird, but this is the closest I was able to come up with. So for the components, I went with the Inno Cordova emitter, because obviously you have to go with this emitter. For the vents, I went with the Rebel Hero vents. Then I went with the Jaro Tapal switch because that's just the most basic looking switch there is. And then I was really torn here on the handles. There isn't really a good handle that's like completely plain. So I just decided to go with the Hermit grips because, you know, the black on the grip kind of looks like the rings around the top part of the lightsaber. So I'm still trying to keep the original vibe of his lightsaber. Then for the pommel, I went with the Rebel Hero pommel, the Hermit grips again, the Jaro Tapal switch again, and then the Inno Cordova emitter. And then the final pommel is the Rebel Hero. Then next up is the materials. You want to go with any type of chrome or silver, so I went with the Imperial Chrome. And then the secondary color has to be either like copper or bronze or a light version of gold, so I'm just going to stick with bronze. Then for the accent doesn't change anything except for the very top part of the lightsaber, so just make that silver or chrome as well. And then the grips, that's honestly kind of up to you guys. You could make them silver and just have like a whole silver lightsaber. But like I said, I just went with the black here because I feel like the grooves in the grip kind of resemble the rings around the top part of Luke's lightsaber. So I just wanted to capture the all-around vibe of Luke's saber with this grip. So that's why I went with black. And then for the conditioning, you can kind of play around with it. I like to put it on well kept, just to give it a little bit of character. And I know it doesn't look exactly like Luke's green lightsaber, but I think it turned out pretty well. So for the next weapon on our list, I wanted to make a blaster build for you guys. So what you need to do for this build is make all three parts the RSKF44, and this will create the same exact blaster that Beckett used in the Han Solo movie. Now what's cool about this is that you can actually toggle on and off the scope. Now he doesn't use the scope in the movie, but I actually really like the way that the scope looks. But for the sake of this video, we're going to be keeping it off. So the materials we need to make the primary color a metal alloy, and then you can just play around with the polish and make it as shiny as you want. So for the secondary color, you want to go with any type of black. I went with the darkest black I could find, which is the Imperial Plastoid Black. And you don't really need to screw around with the polish too much because honestly, you can't even really tell with this weapon. But I'm going to go ahead and make the polish 0. And then for the accent, you want to make the accent any type of bronze or brass color because that's what he used in the movie. And then for the grip, I went with the starter non-metal category and I chose the grill wood. And then I turned the polish all the way down to about 15. And just like that, you have Tobias Beckett's blaster from the Han Solo movie. So next up on our list, we have yet another blaster, and to make this blaster, you're going to have the pre-order bonus. Now in this game, it's called the Combustion Blaster, but all these parts are based off of the A180 blaster that Jyn Erso used in Rogue One. So for the primary color of this blaster, I feel that either the Imperial Chrome or the Plastoid Black are both very good options here. But for this video, I'm going to be sticking with the Plastoid Black. The secondary color, you want to make any type of steel or chrome, but I'm going to be going with the stainless Durasteel. Then for the accent, you want the accent to be another black color or a gray color, so I'm going with the Inquisitor Dark Gray. And then for the handle, since you have a fabric on the handle, it only gives you 3 options of the different fabrics, so I'm going with the black cloth. And then for the conditioning, I like to put it on well kept. And there you have it, that is how you replicate Jyn Erso's blaster from the movie Rogue One. So next up, we're going to be trying to get as close as possible to replicating Jango Fett's blaster. What you're going to need is the Cage Vanda barrel, and you want to toggle off the attachment so that it looks nice and plain. Then for the body, you want the RSKF44 body, and then for the grip, you want the Model 13 grip. Now, it's pretty hard to replicate Jango Fett's blasters. The parts that they give you are very limited, especially for the body of the blaster. They don't give you too many options to choose from, so I went with the one that looked the closest. And then for the materials, you just want to make it Imperial Chrome for the primary. The secondary color, you want to make Imperial Chrome as well. The accent, I made a little bit darker. I went with Imperial Alloy. That way it just looks a little bit darker than the chrome of the rest of the blaster, just to kind of separate the trigger from the rest of it. Then for the grip, I went with Hard Plastoid Gray, because the grip in the movies is actually a different texture than the complete silver, so we went with the hard plastic. And then for the conditioning, it's kind of up to you, but I'm going to go with Pristine. And I really like the look of this. I feel like it came out pretty well, and I feel like this is the closest that you can get to actually replicating Jango Fett. And then the final weapons I'm going over in this video are probably pretty obvious, but I'm going to be going over the pre-order and the deluxe edition bonuses for those of you that aren't too sure on the correct color schemes. The first up is the iconic Han Solo blaster, the DL44. So for the components, you want to make all 4 pieces the DL44, and then you can toggle on and off the scope. I think it looks good either way, but technically Han Solo had a scope on his DL44, so we're going to keep the scope on for this video. So for the primary color, you want to make the primary color any type of black. I just went with the Imperial Plastoid Black, and then I turned the polish down a little bit to about 25. For the secondary color, this is what changes the barrel. So you want to make this any type of steel, so I just went with the metal alloy. And then for the accent, you want to make the accent black as well, so I went with the Plastoid Black, and then I turned the polish back down to about 25. And then for the grip, you want to go with a wooden grip, so I went with the non-starter metal, and I went with the grill wood, and I turned the grill wood's polish clear down to 0. And then for the conditioning, you can either give it a little bit of wear and tear and put it on well kept, but I like to keep it on pristine. And this is probably one of the closest color schemes that you're going to get to the iconic Han Solo DL44 blaster. And then going over Anakin Skywalker / Luke Skywalker's lightsaber real quick, all you have to do is make all of the pieces of this lightsaber the Rebel Hero set. And then for the materials, you want to make the primary material any type of silver, so I went with the Imperial Chrome. The secondary, I went with the Imperial Chrome 2. And then for the accent, you want to go with any type of gold, so I decided to go with the Electrum Plated. And then the grip, you want to make the grip either a black or a rubber, so I went with the Plastoid Black because it stands out a little bit better. And then for the conditioning, that's kind of up to you. You can make it nice and pristine, but I like to put it at well kept. And there you have it. There is the iconic Luke Skywalker lightsaber. And then depending on what movie you want to go with, you can either make the lightsaber color blue. And then if you want it to look like it's from A New Hope, you can go with cyan. And then the final weapon of today's video is Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber, or the Hermit lightsaber. And every piece of this lightsaber is going to be from the Hermit category. And then for the materials, you want to make the primary color any type of chrome or silver. I went with the Imperial Chrome. The secondary color has to be black, so I went with the Imperial Plastoid Black. For the accent, you also want it to be some type of chrome or silver. The grip, you want it to be some type of black. And then for the conditioning, I keep mine at well kept. And that is how you make Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber. So that is going to do it for all of the iconic weapons that you can remake in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I tried to make a couple others like Palpatine and Mace Windu, but it just didn't quite look right. There's just not enough pieces to work with in this game. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. Let me know what your all-time favorite Star Wars blaster / lightsaber is down in the comments. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. That way you guys don't miss out on any future Star Wars Jedi Survivor videos. And that is going to do it for me, everyone, and I will talk to you all next time.